listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
Hello, hello. This is Katee Van Horn, and I am without my counterpart today. She's hopefully joining us shortly as we're recording. But this is the Inclusive AF podcast, and we have a very special guest with us today to talk about some very relevant topics for a lot of folks right now. So, Ramon, would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little about your background, who you are.
Sure, Katie. So my name is Ramon Santillian. I'm an interview coach, and I started off as a accountant many years ago. That was my major in college, and I work for big accounting firms. I work for the big oil and gas companies doing tax returns and helping them with their tax issues. And at some point in my career, I decided to make a change because I felt like a lot of people needed help. A lot of introverts, just like me, needed help preparing for interviews. And I saw an opportunity where I could help them. So I've been doing that for the past 15 years, working with people one-on-one to help them get the jobs that they want.
Awesome, very cool. And 100% success rate on top of that, which makes me very happy to hear. So that's amazing. So, Ramon, would love to hear a little bit about what are you focused on right now, or what are the things that are kind of most relevant to you right now as an interview coach as you approach clients or are starting to work with clients?
Yeah. So, when I first started off, I focused on executives. So people who are in the C-suite, CFOs, CEOs, senior VPs, that kind of stuff. And I was very successful with that. A lot of the names of people I work with, you've seen them on the front page of the newspaper, whether it's at the national level or even your city level. And that was great. They were happy. I was happy. At some point, I started receiving calls from students and from their parents actually, saying, "Hey, my son or daughter needs help preparing for an interview," and I started helping with that. And that was also very rewarding. And obviously they paid my fee. But later on, a couple of years after that, I started getting the same call, but this time they would say, "Hey, my son's on the spectrum, or my son has autism. My son has been diagnosed ASD. Can you help him? Can you help her?" And I would say, they explained a bit what it is, and I would help them. And these were kids who were in college, very smart, very educated. However, they struggled a lot with the interview process. Yeah, a lot of interview process has to do with things that people who have been diagnosed with, who are neurodiverse, struggle with. So a lot of facial gestures they don't recognize or catch. Sometimes they're monotone. Even things like smiling, they don't know when to smile or they're smiling too much. So I was able to help that group of candidates. And these weren't just regular jobs. These were jobs that, everyone else would kill for. So jobs at Facebook, at Google,
Mhm.
Blue Origin, NASA, Amazon, you name it. Those are big, big names. They were getting interviews. And more importantly, they were getting offers. So I started getting calls. I would get a call from the mom. I would say, "Yeah, I work with your son, work with the son." And, within a couple of weeks, sometimes 2 months, they would get these great offers. Not just one, not just two, sometimes three, four, five offers. And again, these were kids that at some point someone say, "Yeah, you're not going to get a job. Like, don't even try." So I would get the calls from the moms afterwards crying, telling me that, I helped them reach a goal that everyone has said was impossible. And said they would tell me, when I had him, people told this is the mom talking to me. When I had him, people told me, "Put him in a home. Like you're not going to be able to handle this and take care of him." And they said, "No, I'm going to take care of him." When it was time to go to school, kindergarten, said just put him in a special class and kind of you know just let him go through because he's never going to make it through. When he graduated
Mhm.
high school, like don't put him in college. He's never going to make it in college. And then when they were getting ready to graduate, they heard the same thing from people. He's never going to get a job. Just get him a job at a pizza shop. Again, nothing wrong with a job at a pizza shop, but if you have a degree in computer science, you probably know how to use computer science as as a work. And you don't have to work in a pizza shop if you don't want to. But that's what people are telling these moms, like just get him a job somewhere, custodian or something. That's fine. That's the only job he can get. And I will work with them, and not necessarily. I would say I would show them what to do, but more importantly, I would show them why it needs to be done, how to do it, and why it needs to be done. And when I gave them those instructions, I showed them, I walked them through that process, their eyes changed. I could see their eyes change, like, oh, now I know why. And they were going to get these wonderful jobs. So the mom would call me and tell me, you allowed me to have dreams that I never allowed myself to have. Like, I don't have to worry what's going to happen to my son when I'm gone, right? Because now he has a job, not just a job, he has a career that pays him well, very well. Sometimes they make more money than their parents.
Yeah.
They give him benefits, a chance for opportunity for advancements. So there's all these things I don't have to worry about. And the dreams I never allowed myself to have, like he might even be able to support a family. I might have grandkids. And they would tell me, I never allowed myself to think one day I'll have grandkids because I was so worried about what's going to happen to him when I'm gone that, I didn't even think about that. But now
Right.
I can think of maybe, hey, maybe I'll have grandkids because why? Because he can support a family, because he has a job, he has a career. Some
Mhm.
people call me, the moms will call me and tell me like, thanks for giving me that dream, that I can dream that again, or I can allow myself to dream that dream because I never allow myself to. So, anyways, so my practice has been focused more on neurodiverse candidates because to me that is very fulfilling. So again, helping some senior VP make it to CFO or get an extra 100,000, $150,000 more in their paycheck. It's fun, but helping a student who was written off by everyone else as a failure, even before they started, helping them start their career and get a job, again, a job that people will kill for, and not even through some hiring initiative, a job that he or she applied to that's competing against everyone else, just typical students, and still beat those students. That is very fulfilling to me. Getting that text like, hey, I got the job. Or like, hey,
Yeah.
I have a new problem. I have two offers. Which one should I take? Like that's a problem.
That's
That's
a
a
good
wonderful
problem to
problem
have.
to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, that's what I've been focusing my practice in the last maybe 8 or 9 years, helping neurodiverse candidates prepare, look, and better present themselves, not sell themselves, present themselves during interviews. And we've been very successful with that. Like you mentioned, we have a 100% success rate because my programs are customized to that individual. I don't just tell them general advice. I say, okay, what are we working with? What do you struggle with?
Right.
Let's figure out the best way to help you turn those interviews into job offers.
So let me ask you a question. If someone comes to you and says, hey, I need help getting the job or getting even an interview or getting noticed, all of those things, what are I am neurodiverse. What should I do? How do you assess what the needs are and how you best support them?
Really, I think whether you're neurodiverse or neurotypical, I really think it's figuring out that what the real goal is. Uh, Most people focus on the steps. So, what is the step? A step to getting a job is working on your resume, applying to jobs, connecting with people, having interviews. Those are steps. And people confuse those for goals. So, you don't have to apply to 100 jobs. So, people say, how many? That's the first question they ask me. How many jobs should be applying to every week? It's like, should it be five? Should it be 10? Should it be 15? I was like, and I say, well, it doesn't really matter how many jobs you apply to. That's not the point. The point is to have strong applications. So that way, your chances of getting an interview are higher. And so we should also be not just applying, but we should also be connecting with people, finding the right people, not recruiters, but actually decision makers. And there's a difference. And
Yeah.
well, how many should I connect with? I was like, again, that's not the point. Like the point is quality connections. We're not just connecting with everyone at Amazon, for example. We're connecting with the
Mhm.
people who might be able to make a decision on whether they hire you or not. Um, Even interviews, like I always tell my candidates, my students in my program, I don't want you to have a bunch of interviews. I want you to have a bunch of job offers.
Right.
So the goal is a job offer. Everything else are just steps, and steps can be moved around. So no one's ever told me. I've had candidates, again, students in my programs, who within 2 weeks get a job offer. No one's has yet. Maybe one day someone will. No one's complained to me and told me, "Hey, I only applied to 3 jobs." Like, or like, "Hey, I didn't connect with more people. You need to like help me connect with more people." I said, "No, we got the job,
Mhm.
right? You had the 2 offers. Like, that's
Right.
great." I always go back and show them that process too, But I tell them like, you don't have to get an interview to get a job offer. I've seen that many, many times before. We
Right.
connect with the right people, we talk to them. And I've seen this again many times. Uh, they'll say, hey, they'll meet informally with some candidate, and it'll be a person that works for the company, and they say, hey, that was a great call. Let's have another call, but my boss is going to be on it. Is that okay? Yeah, sure. We'll have another call. We prepare for it, obviously. And they'll say, hey, that was great. We have a position. It's not posted yet, but here's the thing. We're going to post it. You're going to apply. We're going to interview some people so we can check the box with HR, but the job is yours. So give us about, a week, and you don't have to interview again. We've already talked to you. We know we want you. Give us about a week so we can interview other people. And, by next Friday, you'll get an offer. And it happens. So
Right.
people get offers without interviewing. And people say, again, no one's ever told me like, hey, I need to have more interviews. Like, no, it's like, we got the goal. So again, my process is that first thing I do is like, hey, let's change this. What is the goal? Is the goal to have a bunch of interviews, a bunch of applications, a bunch of different resumes, or is the goal to have a job offer?
Right. Right.
Once we identify that, the next step is what kind of job do you want? Because, we see it all the time. If you go on social media, you go to Facebook, and a mom usually puts, hey, my son's looking for a job, my daughter's looking for a job.
Hmm.
She has a computer science degree or architectural degree or a law degree or whatever degree. First comment on there, McDonald's is hiring. And it's like, well, it's a job, but that's not the job we're looking for.
Right.
Same thing with this. I tell the students in my program, what is the job you're looking for? A lot of times they say, well, I just need a job. Okay, I get it. You need a job. But if it was the ideal job, what would it look like? Let's talk about that. And then I say, would it be where you live right now? Would it be back home where your parents live? Would it be in some other states? What kind of industry? What kind of company? What do you want to be paid? How far is your commute? Do you want to be in office, hybrid, or work from home? Do you, what do you want to be called? Who do you want your boss to be? Who do you want your peers to be? Once we identify that, we can narrow down a lot of the jobs, right? The McDonald's job is completely off our list. We don't have to worry about that. And we're able to focus on the ones we really want. And that's the next step in the process. So I know I kind of jumped around, but like,
No, 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 that's great.
instead of talking about the skills, we first focus on what is the real goal.
Absolutely. So I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, and it's something that, I talk about with any of the folks that I know that are more introverted. I myself kind of use this methodology when I'm at conferences because I think it's very overwhelming to be at conferences or to be interviewing for jobs. And I like the whole idea that you're sharing around, it's not about the amount of people that you meet, but the quality of the conversation, the quality of what can move the needle forward in finding that job. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of that networking piece and that, building those connections and what you tell candidates?
Yeah, so I always tell people, part of the reason we want to focus on connecting with people right now, especially as a student, is because I want you to start developing that muscle. Yeah, maybe the person we're connecting with is not going to help you get this job, but guess what? In 3 years, you might be looking for a different job. In 10 years, you might be looking for a different job. And I want you to start doing those reps, building that muscle. So
Mhm.
when you look for a new job, you don't have to worry about like, well, I gotta start looking for people to connect with now. Like, no, you've been doing that since you graduated college or even before you graduated college. You know how to do that now. And that's very useful. And I was telling them like, let's do the work before. Let's preload the work. So for example, when you have a conference, um, a lot of people wait till the day of the conference to show up and then try to connect with people. I personally find that hard. I find it less hard now because I'm older, more experienced, and I have practice. But what I used to do before is I used to go on LinkedIn before the conference, and people usually hashtag whatever conference they're going to, they put hashtag, you know,
Yeah,
XYZ conference 2026, right, for this year.
yeah, yeah.
So you just look for that hashtag and you know who's going. And you see, oh, this person is going. Let me send me a connection request on LinkedIn. Hi, name a person. I see you're going to XYZ conference 2026. I'm also going. I would love to connect with you. So that way I know someone before I go there. You connect with them, you kind of chit chat back and forth. And when the conference starts, now you already know people. So the day of the conference, you can show up and like, hey, you're, Katee, and we connected on LinkedIn. And you're like, oh yeah, you're Ramon. We connected on LinkedIn. We know each other. Hi, nice to meet you. Again, you've already met. You don't even have to do that. Hi, nice to meet you. It's like, hi, nice to meet you in person because you've already
Right.
chatted. And then I can connect with the people, your friends. Uh, you can connect with my friends. Again, it works all the way around. So I like to do all that front loading the work instead of trying to be better than other people. And extroverts, for example, that's something I struggle with. So I don't try to compete. Actually, I never compete. I outsmart people.
That's great. And I think that those are just, that's such a important point to make of that free work beforehand, because I think that does, put you in a position that, A, you don't feel like you're walking in cold
Yeah.
and you know that, oh, I'm going to go meet whoever, or I know that these people are there, which makes it less scary. Because I think I'm sure you have had the same experience where going into conferences, not knowing anyone, and it's like, oh, geez, how do I start a conversation or start, having start networking without it being uncomfortable. But I think, Jackye and I and a few others, when we go to different HR conferences, that's one of the things we actually like to do is go pick up folks that are by themselves at a
Yeah.
conference and don't know anyone and just say, hey, come into our group of friends, come into our group of people. We've met some amazing folks that way. But I think that pre-work is such a great way to frame it because it is something that being able to say, oh, I know that Ramon will be there, so I can find him. I know what he looks like. I know, where he's going to be on
Yeah.
Tuesday of the conference or whatever. And even having, hey, let's go grab a coffee or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. That's such a great way to get to know folks and have a different conversation. So when you think about, currently, I think a lot of folks are applying to a lot of jobs.
Hmm.
And, with AI, with some of the other tools that are out there, resumes are being scraped in a different way. And so I wonder, what thoughts, what advice, what would you say to someone who is looking for a role that maybe is getting, is having too many turn downs or having, too many things that they aren't actually getting the traction that they want to get the interviews, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I would say again, this is a problem that's been happening before. Now we call it AI, but we've had ATS software from before, applicant tracking
Mm.
software, and it's doing the
Yeah.
same thing. It's a little side note. A lot of the AI tools that companies are using right now, they've just been relabeled AI. They're not AI. They're just software. It's just regular software,
Yeah.
and they're looking for keywords. So if you're gonna apply to a job, look at the job description and you'll find the keywords by looking at what they're looking for. So I've done it personally when I apply to jobs. If there's a line, a bullet point in the job description that says, again, my background in accounting, so it said tax accountant with experience in XYZ, I'll actually take the bullet point and put it in my resume exactly how it is. Assuming obviously that I do have the experience. I'm not going to put a fake experience on there, but
Right, 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 of course.
and
Yeah.
it works really well because the software is looking for that phrase. Tax accountant with experience in XYZ. And it's like, oh yeah, this is the guy because he has the experience we're looking for. So that's just part of the process. Again, taking it back and saying, what is the goal that they're really trying to solve here?
Yeah.
Companies don't hire people just to hire people. They don't, they hire people because they have a problem to solve. If they could have figured out how to use software to solve that problem, they would have done it already. But at this point, they haven't done it, so they need to hire someone. So instead of figuring out, or instead of trying to like put the secret keywords in white and white font and like try to trick the system,
Yeah.
don't trick the system. Just outsmart everyone else. Like, okay, what is the real goal here? Why are they hiring someone who's a process engineer or whatever it is that you're looking for? Start with that. Second, look for those people on LinkedIn that work at the company that are that title. That's also good because you'll get information about the insights about the company. You'll know if they're really hiring, what the interview process is like. And there's three types of people you want to connect with. Future you. Actually, start with peers. Peer is someone just like you, except 3 to 5 months ahead. So
Mhm.
someone who just went through the interview process. Those people are good because they'll give you insights into the actual interview process. Hey, they're going to ask you this question. Or like, yeah, it's going to be a panel interview on the second one, but the last interview is going to be with the main person. Right. So that's a good connection to have. So peers.
Right.
Future you is someone just like you, except 3 to 6 years ahead. So those people are good because they can tell you exactly what the job is about. So that's always a good insight. And they'll tell you some stuff about the interview process. And they might even help you with your resume. Say, hey, send me your resume. I'll look it over. And they might even say, hey, send me your resume. I'll pass it along. And the third person you want to connect with is a future boss. So future boss is exactly what it sounds like. So the person who's going to be your boss at that company. You want to do that because that person can make exceptions. So again, some companies hire from certain schools. And if HR gets your resume and you're not from that certain school, they're going to weed you out. So no, we don't hire from your school. However, you get to a decision maker, a hiring manager usually, that person can say, you know what, we typically don't hire from the school. However, I like your profile. So we'll have a chat. And nowadays, it's so easy. Like, again, we can do this. Companies do that all the time. They have a Zoom call. It doesn't cost anything. It's easier than having a picking your brain coffee conversation where remember back in the day when we used to meet someone for coffee at Starbucks for half an hour, and then half an hour was never half an hour, right? It was half an hour of coffee, but 15 minutes to get there at least, another 15 minutes to get back to your office. And then if the conversation went weird, now you're stuck with that person and like, oh, I gotta get off. But nowadays it's so easy now because again, a 30-minute conversation through Zoom is 30 minutes. Hey, I had a meeting before, I'm done, let me jump in. And if it gets weird, oh, sorry, someone's calling me, I gotta go, bye, boom, and you're done. So that's a lot easier nowadays to do that. So that's what I would say. Connect with those three types of people: your peers, future you, and future boss.
I had a question
Awesome.
for you.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I was wondering, because I know you help people when they're talking about themselves, and sometimes that can be the hardest thing in the world. When people say, it sounds like an easy question. So tell me about you. They like it's a softball question and
Yeah.
sometimes get so overwhelmed and nervous that you can embarrass yourself or say the wrong thing or something inappropriate. Like, what do you suggest how to answer that like elevator question as someone who is interviewing? I have one that I've used, but I always get nervous,
Yeah.
palms start sweating and I'm not sure how to do that if I'm doing it right. What's the right way or suggested way that can help people answer that?
So so I don't know if there's the right way. There's many ways. So all the ways are right. You just have to apply them the right way, obviously. So the first thing is actually, in most of these things, mindset's the first thing you need to change. So instead of, a lot of people struggle with the tell me about yourself question because they think it's an open-ended question. It's not an open-ended question. They don't care about you. And I don't mean this. So I tell about all my clients this is like, no one cares about you. And I don't mean that uh, that you're worthless, that you don't have value, that you're not important. You are important. I'm also not saying that companies are evil and corporations are bad. Like that's not what I'm saying either. I said no one cares about you, like because everyone cares about themselves. So they don't care about you and all the stuff that you do. However, they do care about what you can help them with.
Mm.
So when they ask you, tell me about yourself, they don't care that you like to play video games and all that stuff, unless the job is video game related. What they care about is how you can help them. And that's another thing too. Instead of trying to sell yourself, it's like, please give me a job. Like please, please, please. Or even thinking about elevator pitch. I hate that term because why is it ever called an elevator pitch? Because the idea is that you have, what is it, 8 floors, and to be able to tell them all about yourself. So that adds some stress to the moment because like, okay, I gotta, 1 minute to tell them all my story. Adds stress. Why even put stress in it? Like, don't call it an elevator pitch. Don't call it selling yourself. You're not a thing. You're a person. You're not a brand. I hate the term brand too. Like, you're not a brand. You're a person. And I know that's not what it's supposed to mean, but in my head, it's like, no, you're not a brand. You're a person. You're not a thing. So what I say, okay, instead of focusing on that, and instead of you asking for a job, flip it around. This isn't about, I'm trying to get something from you. Like, no, no, no. This is the opposite. I am trying to help you out. So again, what is the problem that the company has? And focus on that. So for example, and you say, having all those things in mind, that no one cares about you, they have a problem to solve, and you should present yourself as a solution. Again, for a college student, even for a professional, I would say, okay, start with your name, major. Obviously, if you're a professional, you want to say your major, but if you're a college student, name, school, major, some of your technical skills, and then bring it back to them and say, and the reason I'm here today is because I want to learn more about so and Z. And I think I would be a good resource because I know about ABC. So again, this switches the whole conversation. It's not me looking for a job anymore. If you have a problem, I'm here to help you with your problem. I actually have examples of when I saw that problem that you have. I saw you guys are hiring a process engineer, and I found an interview that the CEO gave where they're trying to increase this new production line. I actually have experience doing that. I would love to tell you more about it as we go along. But you tell me, what about my profile attracted you the most? That's how you answer it. Because now you get them engaged, and they're going to tell you what the problem is. Because they're going to say, well, what I really liked about your profile was, ABC. And oh, that's the real problem. Let me go heavy on ABC because they told me what the problem is. A little bit more on that. How long should your interview answer be? So the typical, the research has been done, and the typical interview answer is between 60 and 90 seconds. So a minute to a minute and a half. Keep in mind, keyword here is typical. That is the typical answer. In my opinion, the best answer has no time limit. It can go as long as you need it to, as long as you're educating, entertaining, and or engaging. If you're doing all three at the same time, even better. I have done 15-minute interview answers where I've answered a question for 15 minutes. It wasn't me giving a monologue either, right? It was me entertaining, educating, and engaging the person. So as I was giving my answer, I would ask them, hey, you've been in a similar situation? And they would tell me, yes, I have. Like, this happened to me too, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, so now you know what I'm talking about because the same thing happened to me. Or I would ask them, like, what do you think happened next? Well, this happened probably, right? No, the opposite happened. And I tell them how to solve that problem and take them to that whole story. So that's how you answer questions with an interview. It changes your mind. Asking for anymore. You're for help. When you're selling something, the best salespeople are not there to sell you something. The best salespeople are there to help you solve your problem. Whether it's a vacuum cleaner, whether it's interview coaching, whatever, you have a problem. I'm here to help you with the problem. I'm not here to sell you a vacuum. I'm here to help you, make your chores easier.
I love that. I always tell people like the first sales job I got was when they asked me, told me to sell them a vacuum cleaner. And I was like, hey, do you need a vacuum cleaner? And they said, you're hired. It was like, why?
No.
It was like, because you asked me if I needed it. Like so many people just jump into it
Yeah.
without even asking if I need a vacuum cleaner. It's like, I'm so glad that you asked. I think you're right. And that does change the way that I think about it. I was today years old when I thought about it that way.
Well, I love that you're talking about creating a dialogue between and a conversation versus it just being a question and answer back and forth. It really is more of a engaging in a adult conversation to say, hey, what do we have in common? What are the things that we can talk about? How do we want to talk about these things? And you get, I think it's the old adage of the interviewer or the interviewee is also interviewing the company for the job. So, they want to know what the company is all about, what experiences, and, to your earlier point, who their boss is and what their boss thinks about things. So I love that idea of really framing it from that perspective of making it into an engaging dialogue versus a monologue.
Because now we're having a relationship. We're building a relationship.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, really, what you want to have is a conversation. And the real reason why you want to have a conversation is because people don't hire the most technical person. They hire the person they like the best. Think about it. When you apply to a job, all the people applying to the job, especially college students, they're your peers. They've taken the same class, literally the same classes as you. They might have a GPA point higher than you, a little bit lower. They might have more internship experience and all that stuff. You can't change those things. But what you can change is the conversation. And think about it this way. You're going to spend a lot of your life, a lot of your day, just every day you're going to spend at work, and people want to hire people they like. If they don't like you, it's like, well, this guy might be the best one in the world in this one thing. However, he or she, we can't get along. I don't want them here with me. 8 hours a day because I'm going to see this person more than I'm going to see my wife, my kids, and my, significant other. So I want to like them. And that's when you have a conversation. Let your competition have interviews. You don't have any. I always tell my candidates, you're not going to have any interviews anymore. You're going to have conversations. From this day on, conversations. Let your competition have interviews.
Absolutely. I would love for you to chat more about kind of the barriers that you see that neurodiverse candidates face when they're going into the job market. What are the things that you're hearing that they're sharing are struggles for them?
I think a lot has to do, again, kind of with the mindset, because a lot of them, again, most of my students are college students, and they've taken an internship class where they teach them how to make a resume, how to interview, how to apply for jobs, and that kind of stuff. Career services, they try their best. They're not a lot of people work in career services, but they have several thousand students that they need to teach. So they kind of make a standard approach to these things. And that works well for some people. However, uh, for the rest of us who are not the quarterback of the football team or outgoing and whose dad owns a company, we might need different kind of help. So a lot of this, they come to me and say, "Hey, I applied." I've had students tell me they applied to 750 jobs in a semester, and they didn't get a single interview. And they say, "Well, I went to career services, and they said I should do more." And I tell them, I tell them, okay, how old are you? And they're like, well, I'm 22. It's like, okay, I'm 45. For easy math, I'm twice your age, right? I haven't applied to more than 100 jobs in my life. And I've worked since I was like 13. And I don't even think I've applied to 50 jobs in my life. So when you, 22-year-old person, has applied to 750 jobs in one semester, so in 2 or 3 months, and you get a single interview, something's wrong with the process. You don't need to do it harder. You need to change it. So a lot of times it's telling them like, hey, I know they told you that. However, that's not working. You don't need to do it harder. We need to do it differently. So a lot of times we have to update actually every time we update the resume. And they tell me, well, this is the format. Like I understand. Use that format for that class so you can get your A on the internship class. That's fine. Do that what the teacher tells you. Do that for the class. But when we're applying in the real world, we're going to use a format that works for you, which might be different from my next clients. Again, we focus on individualized, customized help for each person. So a lot has to do that thing. The second thing I work with them that they struggle with is like, I need a job, any job. And again, I mentioned this earlier. Like, I just need to get this job, internship, co-op, so I can get the credit so I can graduate. Anything works. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's try to get the best job we can right now, because the job you get right now affects the next job you get. If you get a job at a top company now, a name brand, especially, that's going to help you get a job the next time, because the next company is going to say, if you were good enough for Facebook, for Google, for Blue Origin, for SpaceX, for NASA, if you're good enough for those guys, you're definitely good enough for me, because they don't hire just anyone. They hire the best of the best. And you must be the best of the best because you interned there or you work there, like you got a full-time offer after your internship. So you must be good. So I tell them, okay, yeah, I know I understand you need a job, but let's focus and try to get the best job possible. Going back to my original example, like what is the best job possible? Where do you want to work? And we work through that exercise to help them, narrow down the choices. And that's kind of the point. We don't want to have all the jobs in the world at our disposal. We want to have the jobs that we want at our disposal. Um, and then from there too, so the next step would be actually prepare for interviews. A lot of times people, they kind of skim the internet for some information. And nowadays people use AI to try to find something about, a company. And I say, well, I mean, that's good, I guess, to start off with. But what you want to do is your practice. So back in the day, I used to practice in front of the mirror. So me specifically, I focus on my expressions because I'm a little bit more serious guy, and I'm a really tall guy too. So I have wide shoulders and really tall, so I can be intimidating. And I'm serious. This is my normal face actually. So my resting face is this one. So people are scared of me, and I was like, why are people running away from me? And then I realized I saw myself in the mirror one day, and I thought it was someone else, and I was like, man, that guy's like really angry. And I was like, oh wait, that's me. And then it dawned on me like, wow, people look at me this way. Like, and I was scared of myself. And I'm my size. This guy, the guy I was looking at, looked angry, was my size, and I was scared of him. I can't imagine what people who are shorter than me think of, like this giant Mexican man just like walking towards, like he's gonna kill me. So I tell them about the expressions, like, hey, we got to focus on that because people notice that. I know you think like no one cares about the smile. I know your mom probably tells you to smile all the time. There's a reason behind it. The reason is because you sound and you look different in a good way. Um, so I walk them through that process. And then interview too. So going back to the interview, practicing the interviews. So just doing some research the night before the interview is not enough. Yeah, everyone sounds like Winston Churchill in their head. Like I give great speeches in my head, like, oh yeah, I sound so awesome when I speak and blah blah blah.
Wait, I don't
But when
sound
I
like
say, especially,
Winston
I have it, yeah, I have an accent, and some words I stumble on, but in my head I say them perfectly. But when I say them out loud, I I get tongue tied, and I realize, oh yeah, so maybe tomorrow when I talk about myself during the interview, I shouldn't use that word because I'm gonna get stuck. So maybe let's say a different word. Or sometimes again, in my head, what I'm gonna say about my background or tell me about yourself sounds great, but when I say it out loud, it's like that sounds dumb. Like, or this is incredible, or it doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, let me change it again. Let me see what works. That's what I do with my clients. We practice. It's not so much about practicing mock interview questions. We do practice mock interview questions, like tell me about yourself, biggest strength, biggest weakness. But really, the focus is on developing their story. I call it interview theme. So, how do you want to come across to these people? And once you know your interview theme, no matter what question they ask you, you're gonna know how to answer it because you know what your theme is. So again, people say, how many questions are we going to practice? It's like, I mean, we'll practice as many as we want, but like we can practice all the questions in the world. And guess what? They might have a different question we've never even thought about. So practicing questions by itself is not good enough. Like getting one of those 101 interview question books. I mean, I have several of them here, and they all have the same questions. But what if they ask you 102 interview questions? What are you going to do then if you don't know? If you're just like, uh, well, I don't know the question. I don't know the answer because I've never been asked that question. Like, no, but if you know your interview team, you know exactly how to answer that. Going back to Jackie's point, like, what's the right answer? All the answers are the right answers. You just have to present them the right way. No one's ever going to say, what's your biggest weakness? My biggest weakness is time management. Wrong. Actually, the answer we're looking for is, whatever. No one's going to say that. This isn't a test. It's a conversation. So talk about yourself, present yourself as the solution to their problem, not as a person looking for a job. That's the two different candidates. One who's looking for a job and one who's offering help. So it's completely two different people, completely different mindsets. And guess what? The person offering help looks better, sounds better, and is more attractive company than the person looking for something.
Great. You talk about an interview theme. Can you tell us more about that? Like, how do you develop the theme and how do you set the candidate up? How do you figure out what the theme is?
Yeah, I mean, fairly easy. I asked the person, how do you want to be seen? And said, well, I want to be seen as smart, educated, hardworking, dedicated. I mean, it can be anything. And then from there, I tell them, okay, so now when you get a question, how would a smart, dedicated, whatever adjective they use to describe themselves, how will that person answer this? And they say, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like, okay, that's what you are. And, so I think I kind of give you the Cliff's notes on it, but also we go deeper into and saying, okay, what about you is attractive to companies? And a lot of times, well, I don't know, there's nothing attractive. Like I have a 4.0, that's the only thing. It's like, no, there's something there. And so, well, I don't have any related work experience. I'm like, okay, maybe. But they know who they're hiring. They're not hiring you to lead the departments. They know they're hiring an intern, someone for their co-op. They're going to put you at the bottom. They know who they're hiring. Like they're not dumb. Amazon is not going to hire some kid off of college. Yeah, you're going to lead our AI department. Like no, you're going to start from the bottom in whatever department you're in, and work your way up. But that's kind of how you're going to start. So I tell them, what about you is attractive, and what about you is not attractive? Why do you think they'll hire you, and why do you think they won't hire you? And a lot of times, especially the parts where they think, oh, they're not going to hire me because I don't have leadership experience. It's a lot of those answers. And I tell them, they're not going to hire you because of your leadership experience, because they're not hiring you to be a leader. Or they say, well, I'm not the best coder. And I'll tell them like, I know. And actually, guess what? They know you're not the best coder. That's why they're hiring you at this level. They know exactly who they're hiring. If you were head of the department, maybe they have a different level of expectation for how good at coding you are, but they know who you are. Again, Amazon's not stupid. Facebook's not stupid. They're not just going to hire some kid off of college to lead a department. They know you'll develop those skills. So a lot of times I open their eyes to like those things that they think they don't have. Like, yeah, you don't have them, but guess what? They don't care because they don't need that from you. They'll need it from you later on, and you'll have time to develop that skill, your leadership skill, your management skills, your technical skills. They expect you to know some stuff, but they know you don't know anything really. So that's fine. So when they understand that and they realize that, that really helps them like, oh, wait, like I'm putting that limit on myself. No one knows. Again, Amazon knows what they're hiring for. They're hiring an intern. They're hiring someone for a co-op. They're not hiring a department head. If they're hiring a department head, there's different requirements, and they're looking at different candidates. They're not looking at you,
Yeah.
and that's fine because you're not that.
Yeah.
I'm
Looking at a
glad
new
you said
college
that.
grad.
I'm a parent of a 22-year-old and a 25-year-old, and they saw themselves as great leaders. And I think that there's always like, I think they'll get out in the world, they'll learn. But it's what's interesting is how much you realize that they can learn from you. I think, especially at that age, there's a lot of fear going into your first job and looking to leaders and and learning from them, but they are learning just as much, learning things from you, like you're saying, at that level, because I think there is definitely a progression of skills. I was wondering, what do you think is the most common like challenge for students? Is it just, but outside of the interview, is it we hear so much about current graduates not getting the same roles as 20 years before, or the different kinds of roles. Is that something that you've seen, or do you think that's just kind of a myth, or is that steeped in a reality?
So here's my thing. People ask me all the time, since I started doing this 15 years ago, they ask me, uh, is it's really hard getting a job. And they told me this with past presidents, current presidents, this happening, that happening, all this stuff, economies, COVID, all this stuff. And I say, yeah, maybe sometimes it's easier to get a job or there's more jobs available. However, especially during hard times, you want to make sure you're ready for the interview. And most people, again, when times are good, a lot of people get jobs even if they're not ready for the interview. But definitely when times are bad, you need to make sure you're ready for the interview. I think a lot of times people forget that. Again, it's Americans. As Americans, we want to be seen as that we kind of effortlessly just do things. Like I'm just naturally good. I got the interview. I don't need to practice for the interview because I'm just good and I'm gonna wing it. They forget that you know, maybe you're good. You're probably not that good as we think. But the best of the best are the household names that we know, the LeBron James, the Tom Brady's, name it. Those people practice. They practice, and they have coaches that help them practice on specific skills. I was reading an article about how Tiger Woods had like a coach for like I think it was like putting, but within a certain distance. Like it wasn't even like a long putt. I guess I don't know if there's long putts or short putts, but he has a coach just for that because that's so important. That's why we know who Tiger Woods is. So I tell people like, yeah, you can improvise, and people are, oh, I'm just gonna improvise. Like, no, you're not. Like, no, you're not. You don't want to risk it, first of all, and also you're not as good as you think you are. Practice so much you can improvise. That's my
Right.
advice for people. It's like, yeah, you can improvise once you practice so much. And there's a video out there of I saw of LeBron James, kind of proves the point. So they had a new floor installed, I guess, in whatever arena he plays, and he would bounce the ball. He started in one corner of the court, so there's a new floor installed. Dun, dun, shot, and he took a step to the left. Dun, dun, shot. Or actually, maybe he didn't shoot. I think he was just like testing the thing. So he another step to the left. So he went all the length of the court, took a step back, and then went to the other direction. and then he hit the whole, and then he would feel it. Oh, this feels different. Again, most people we don't do. We just kind of pass me the ball, shoot, and I'll make this. Like, no, no one knows who I am as a basketball player because I suck, right? I'm not LeBron James, but LeBron James takes the time to test out new floors in the arena he plays in. That's why he's the best of the best. Same thing should apply for us when we're preparing for an interview. Preparing for an interview is not looking at some Google reviews the night before. It's not kind of skimming the website the night before. Preparing for an interview means doing research on the company, on the job, and the people you're meeting. And I mean research. You find out where they used to work, why they ask, and come up with good questions you want an answer to, not just any question. People ask all the time, oh, I'm going to ask them about diversity. And I tell them, do you care about diversity? It's okay if you don't, but do you really care? And it's because if you ask a canned question, you're going to get a canned answer. You can go, you could be interviewing at the Ku Klux Klan and ask them about diversity, and they will tell you they have diversity. They'll say, oh, yeah, we've got racists from all over the country, from the north, from the south, from the east. We have all kinds of diverse races here. That's what the Ku Klux Klan will tell you because you ask them a canned question, right? And again, if you want to ask that question, that's fine, but make sure you ask it the right way. So that way you get the right response, the true response, not just the canned answer. So I was like, you care about that? No, I don't care. Okay, don't ask. Why do you even ask? What do you care about? Well, I really do care about uh, opportunity for growth. Okay, let's come up with a good way to ask that question. So that way they don't just tell you, oh yeah, there's a lot of growth. Okay. Tell me more about that. Explain to me. Can you give me an example? You want real answers. And I tell them a rule of thumb is this. Think about the question your mom's going to ask you when you finish the interview. Because that used to happen to me. I would finish an interview and my mom would ask me, like this when I was a student, like, how's the person interview? They seem cool. How big is the team? When will they make a decision? How much will they pay you? Well, and I said, I don't know. And she was like, well, you never ask. So the next time I had an interview, I said, okay, I know my mom's going to ask me these questions. Well, I should probably ask so that way she doesn't get angry at me. So I would ask, hey, tell me about the team, blah, blah, blah. So I was telling my students, I said, okay, think about what questions is your mom going to ask you? If you can't come up with any questions, what is she going to ask you? Okay, let's make sure you ask those questions because we know she's going to ask you, so you better have an answer. You can't say, I don't know. She says, well, why are we paying this guy to teach you if you're not asking any
That's
questions, right? So anyways, that's kind of my approach for that.
Awesome. So, Ramon, uh, first of all, I love that answer. I think that might be my takeaway from this is ask the questions your mom is going to ask you after. That is a good tip. But would love to know what is one thing you want our listeners to hear at the end of this episode, or what's one thing that you want to make sure you get across in this conversation?
So many things, but I think kind of like a mantra I live on is, don't compete. You know, if LeBron James asked me to play basketball against him, I know I'm going to lose. If Michael Phelps, multiple, time Olympic swimmer, gold medalist, asked me to get in the pool and race him to the pool, the other end of the pool and back, I'm going to lose. As soon as I get in the water, I'm going to lose. I don't even know how to swim. I'm going to drown. I'll just go straight down. He'll have to save me. So I'm going to lose that thing. However, I say, I'll race you, but I'm going to run around the pool. I'm going to do that because there's a chance I might beat him there. I know I'm not going to beat him in the water, but I might beat him up. If he's swimming and I'm running, maybe I'll beat him. So people don't compete, outsmart. Think about how you're going to outsmart your competition. Don't have interviews, have conversations. Don't wing it. Prepare. And what I mean prepare, not, kind of look, like I said, don't look some things up the night before. Do your research on the company, on the job, and on the people you're meeting. Those are three different things. Doing research on the company is not the same as doing research on the job. It's not the same thing as doing research on the people you're meeting. Have good questions to ask. So again, don't compete. If you compete, there's a chance you might lose. Outsmart your competition.
Okay, very cool. Jackye, what you got?
I'm throwing out the elevator pitch. No more elevator pitch.
Don't
Education,
do it.
entertain, engagement.
Yeah.
As long
I
as you're
like
doing
that.
those things.
I'm
I'm so
single
glad because
mom.
I really hate the elevator pitch. I hate it.
Yeah. Well, I think
Always
it also it puts so much pressure on the person to come up with something like you said, Ramon, for like, okay, you have 40 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it might be to get from floor 8 to floor 12.
right.
What can you really get across in that time frame? So I like that. So I think that the two pieces that I want folks to hear from this, from my end, are again, what is your mom going to ask? I think that's fantastic. But I also think that the comment you made about, what is, if the answer takes 15 minutes, that's okay. But it's more about that conversation and not, it's not just a 15-minute monologue. It's 15 minutes back and forth that you're asking questions and having and engaging in a real conversation. So, Ramon, how can folks find you if they are looking for a coach, if they are looking to find a role? How can they find you?
The best way is to go to my website, persuasiveinterview.com. We have a lot of articles written out there, posted people find very useful. There's also a booking tool there if you want to have a free call with me. So answer any question you might have at the interview process or your son's interview process and see if we're the right fit for each other. You can also go to LinkedIn. You can find me there, linkedin.com/in/interview coach. And but once a week we put a article out there about something we're working on. And on Fridays, I made this little thing called Offer Letter Friday. So every Friday we put a screenshot of a text or an email I received from one of my clients telling me about the job offer that they got, or we talked about earlier, the new problem that they have. Like, hey, I got 2 job offers. Which one do I take? I have a new problem. Every Friday we put the Offer Letter Friday post out there. So those are always good for people to see and be encouraged and know, like, oh yeah, like I can get a job. I can't do it the way everyone else is doing. I have to stop competing. I got to smart people,
Yeah.
outsmart them.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, Ramon, thank you for taking the time. Truly appreciate it. Thank you for sharing with our listeners. This is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton. Bye.
Bye.